So good evening, everyone. I'm James, President of the Canberra Jung Society, in case you've forgotten who I am or wonder who I am. Thank you for joining us here at MacKillop House and online. Let us first acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. This evening, we're delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Sian Ecker. Also with her is Joan and Giselle, therapist, and friend Elise. Thank you very much for coming. We love having you. Tonight, Sian will be speaking about her experiences providing therapy in nature, including equine, assisted therapy, and ecotherapy. Sian and her physiotherapist partner, Joan, have provided therapy and workshops from a rural facility for 10 years and have worked with everyone from children living with neurodiversity to company directors, supplementing their therapy skills with time in nature and with the inclusion of a herd of Arabian horses for an adventure. Dr. Sian Ecker is a clinical psychologist, a Master's of Clinical Psychology and Diploma in Psychotherapy and Counselling. She has provided psychology, psychotherapy and counselling for over 50 people of all ages. Sian works in a non-profit mental health sector. She has a PhD in human ecology and continues her career in social science research. So following Sian's presentation, we'll have a quick break and resume for discussion and question. I will be recording this for later reference. If you're here on Zoom, please remain muted while Sian is speaking. Use Zoom chat for comments, and we'll open up later for discussion. So thank you very much. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Jean. Hello, everyone, and hello, everyone on Zoom. And thank you very much for coming, and thank you for inviting me, Jean, and I'm really happy to be here again at the Jung Society. This is my wife, Joanne. Joanne has what's happening in the presentation, so we're doing an bit of an impro here. Yeah, so we'll go to the first slide. So the timeline to becoming a nature therapist. So this was Jung's timeline that I pieced together around having a problematic childhood and lack of nurturing at home, and as a result really seeking nurturing and time in nature, and nature becoming really part of family and the caring environment. I actually also just want to add, I'm very understudied in Jung. I have always wanted to do more, and this was a great opportunity for me to get sort of more in sync with Jung. But so I just want to let you know, I am certainly no expert. He also had a drive to understand natural sciences.
Anna,
he had a tendency towards nature mysticism.
Ratio.
As he matured, he really wanted to bridge the divide between spirituality and science, and looked towards psychology as a way of doing this. This also happens to be exactly my timeline. These things are all completely true for me. Yeah, in terms of mine. Okay, so we are going to talk about equine therapy to start with. So as Jean said, we've been doing equine assisted therapy for about 10 years, and we're one of the first to sort of start in the region. And we've had quite an amazing journey. So but just to what is a horse all about? So we used to hunt them for prey up until somewhere between 6,000 and 3,000 BC. We started, they either started domesticating us or we domesticated them. They started breeding near human habitation. There is very scant evidence, information about how this actually happened. So it's actually a place of mystery itself. How did the horse and human, how did it go from being a prey animal, which, as you see, would have been extinct if it hadn't become domesticated? We were hunting it so voraciously. Yeah, we know that there has been some ritual burying, even people being found buried with horses, bits of tack, and obviously horses buried with love and reverence from 2000 BC. So yeah, but despite this very long and productive, you know, just to throw in there that it was the horse societies, of course, that were able to dominate the world. You know, so the horses had quite a bit of impact on human society, but nevertheless, we really know very little in terms of a scientific way about what this horse-human connection is about. There is very few research studies, are very few and far between, that try to capture how do horses influence humans and vice versa. The ones that there are often things like, you know, how does a nervous rider make a horse show jump not as well? That sort of study, there's a bit of that, but in terms of trying to understand the relationship, is not very much at all. Therapy, thanks, Elise, is any application where the horse, a therapist facilitates some kind of an experience that involves a horse. It is such a wide and varied, unregulated, ungoverned, exponentially growing form of therapy that almost anything goes. And I think that we're seeing even more people. I've got a horse, I will do a short course in counselling and become. I think that's, why not? I mean, who knows? I don't, you know, but it's certainly not endorsed, quite strongly not endorsed by psychology organisations. Up until recently, they're still not endorsing it, but they're not coming hunting for people who are doing it so much anymore. But yeah, it's not really endorsed. It doesn't have any evidence base. The only way psychology, as you know, or counselling gets an evidence base is through hundreds of randomised controlled trials, which are usually need massive amounts of investment from some sort of, sometimes pharmaceutical companies, sometimes you know, other agents, but nobody's putting that sort of investment into equine assisted therapy research. So what is this? What is going on and with horses and indeed nature? Because there are very few equine therapy outfits that don't involve nature. So you're necessarily going out to, I mean, some of them are in more clinical, stable sort of environments, but most of them are out in the nature. One study, which I can't remember the reference to it, actually found that the benefits of simply visiting a farm were the therapeutic benefits of stepping onto a farm were already quite significant, never mind even having a therapist or a horse or a goat. So some of the theories on, I will get to the Jung sort of connections, but I'm doing the sort of thing that, you know, Jung was struggling with too, the science. There's, you know, got to become, we've got to be validated by science. So what is it about that might be working here? There are quite a few studies that have shown there has efficacy in equine assisted therapy, but nobody's pulled apart what is actually going on. Is it the therapist? Is it being outside? Is it the horse? Is it what is it? So some of that generally with animal assisted therapy is that we're forming attachments and bonds to these animals, and so we're learning about that. So some people, another theory is that just anything to do with relaxation. So it could also be boating or fishing or walking. All those activities, just being around a horse, being on a farm, just physically, it brings some sort of relaxation. It could be just that. The psychosocial learning. So animals, most animals, mammals have a very similar set of communication skills to what humans do, almost identical. All the different types of emotions, mad, sad, glad, disgust, fear. We share them with them. We also share the way, looking away means you don't want something. Looking at somebody means you want, running away means you don't want to be there, coming towards. All those sorts of social communications are very similar. And then the fourth idea is that there's something, and this is where we're getting to the spiritual, psychological sort of interface, or the metaphysical interface, is that there is some sort of physiological effects that are going on in the presence of nature and horses. So how can we measure this effect? There are some of the ways we can do it. Things that we can measure, like hormones, health parameters, heart rate, blood pressure, etc. Heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is a measure of where your nervous system. It gives information on whether your nervous system is in the parasympathetic, the rest and digest, or the sympathetic, the fight, flight, freeze. So it's a very complicated measure, but it gives us some information about that. Or other instruments like mindfulness tests, or anxiety tests, or any other sort of written psychological tests. Or is it something that can't be measured? So some of so now we're getting a bit more into the Jungian ideas, and Jo is a Gestalt therapist, and she walks the line of between evidence-based and sort of deep sort of psychological work, completely without any effort, as far as I'm concerned. So as well as those other things I mentioned, could it actually be some of these more concepts that were more that are more Jungian concepts? That the interbeing, the value of interbeing, just the value of connecting to another being that is like you, that you realize that you can have a connection. So our herd of Arabians work as they're a herd. They have no idea that they are something different or less than we are. Our horses are very, very proud. We treat them as equals. The word equus actually comes from is equal to humans. So our horses will actually go up and greet people as equals, and they have no idea that anyone's going to harm them or force them to do anything. They understand everything is a negotiation. So they meet people, and this is one of the things that a lot of equine therapy people will talk about, is that it matters how the herd lives. If the herd lives its most natural form, where it has its social aspects intact, then it will matter. So examples when our herd leader will come up, when we have groups there, will come up and greet every person. He will check out everything. Make it. It's never not happened. We now know to look for this. It's like, because he won't do it all. You know, just I've done that one, and he will actually go up and do something. He might touch them, but he will look at them and he's bringing them all into his herd. And these sorts of experiences for people, one of the most common things that people say when they've been doing equine therapy, is quite an odd thing to say, and they will say, the horse did not judge me. That's an odd thing to say. But we hear it again, and it's one of those themes that over and over again, the horse didn't judge me. So the other thing that I will hand over to Joe to talk a little bit about is that we, even so equine therapy can be many things. So you can bring all the modalities of psychology and counselling into equine therapy. You can use everything, CBT, Gestalt, DBT, acceptance and commitment therapy. There's nothing that you can't bring, because you can do anything anywhere, right? You can have your toolbox anywhere. Having a horse around can only enhance these things. But one of the things that we do is equine systemic and family constellations. Do we need to be sort of that camera?
You can move a little bit.
So I very much come from a systems background, and with Gestalt therapy and 25 years as an air traffic controller. So my mind works in systems. And what we found, we started doing systemic work in groups with people, where people will represent different parts of a system. And what you're looking for is the social geography they come. A person who walk away, be attracted somewhere like that, or close up, open up, all the different things. And what we're asking in the systemic work is that you do your reports phenomenological. So not what you think the story is in your head, not trying to be to create a story or anything, simply reporting what happens to you. I actually tell people to just describe the social geometry, who you want to look at, where you want to go. Do you have a movement? What would it be? And what we found is that the horses do this work really well as well. They also are attracted, repelled, will move towards people, away from people, will look at different people, will move up. And we've had the horses where they've moved up and tapped someone on the heart. Where they've sort of moved. We've had someone who in immense fear of a horse, with a lot of support of other horses and people representing parts of her life, sat on this big, beautiful black Arabian and talked of her deep yearning for a partner, and just allowed themselves to fully be themselves, without judgment, without judging themselves either. And out of that, they were attending 4 lots of 3 days of training, and turned up the next workshop saying that someone who had actually been in their life was suddenly a partner. And then, like, within a year, we had an invite to their wedding. So things that the changes that can happen within someone when they allow themselves to fully be impacted by both the horse and the people and themselves and the interactions. We've got lots of different examples.
So basically, in this constellation, systemic and family constellations, typically humans will represent. You can also use rocks or anything, because the subconscious doesn't care. The parts of my life I can see laid out in front of me, and I can assign. I know that's this part, that's the other. So when horses are used, there is this seamless apportioning of those parts of someone's life to the horse. So people will immediately say that horse is a family constellation. Yes, oh, that one's definitely my mother, and that one's my brother, and that one, yeah, oh, that's my uncle, and yeah, I don't want to look at that. No, they will. It will just immediately, the horses will be given and take on. Now, we don't really know what happens, but it happens also with humans in this work, that suddenly the horse will, it's named by as its mother, either by, sometimes by the therapist, but by the client, will say which one is most like your mother, that one. And then that horse is acting exactly like my mother. The horse will start doing exactly what the mother does. That's what the person will perceive, and that's what the person will tell us. So we see it too. So is there a little bit of interbeing going on there? We don't know, but it doesn't matter really. The person will get what they need. They will get to speak to their mother, even their deceased members of their system. The horses can represent. We've got and a lot of information can flow. Information that can't flow in necessarily in an office. So for example, we had someone who came out because their father had passed away, I think it was a year or two, and they had just not been able to move on. They were just full of grief. They were just absolutely full of grief. And our herd leader, who was the horse earlier, one of the horses earlier that you saw, the Palomino horse, he was chosen as the representation of the father, and instantly he's a very nervous horse. He's got PTSD. He's very anxious, but immediately he became calm and stood beside her. So something's going on, some interconnection. She is seeing him as her father. There is no question in mind. Her father is there, and he's just following her around, being with her. And then we talk about letting go, and she's like, I've got to let him go. And she's pushing the horse away with her hands. But you could see, and the horse is actually coming closer. And you could see that even though the intention was to push away, everything else was saying, come here, come here. And the horse was responding and coming closer and closer. And there was a great information, because you could see, oh, okay, I'm craving that so much. Even though I'm telling myself I'm letting go, I'm actually, and she went home and she cried for like 3 days, and she was through it. So these moments of, so these horses are they're very attentive to us. So Arabians, we think Arabians are the greatest horses. So Arabians are the horses that have had most to do with people. They are the horses that were taken in the tents. They were taken along not to do work, but because it was so beautiful to have them around when tribes traveled with their horses. They were fed camel milk and dates and not had to do anything but just be there. So they know us. They weren't here when we evolved, like the dogs, but earlier than the dogs. They have been around for so long. They watched us get up on our feet. We're their predator. They know so much about us. They can read our body language way before we know what we're going to do.
We had one more example of someone who had 3 workmates and wanted to get out of that situation, but really was complicated, couldn't make any sense of why it wasn't happening, why whatever he wanted was not happening. And so he went in with 3 of the horses that represented